Good morning, everybody. How you doing? This is Damon Bond from Bond Realty Group, licensed real estate broker in Connecticut, licensed real estate salesperson in the state of New York. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. It's kind of cold out here in the Northeast, in the New York metro area, but that's okay. Spring is about 3 weeks away. All right. So last time we were here, or rather I was in the tube, we were talking about what it is what is it you need to find an agent. We talked about that in some detail. And once again, my business is in Connecticut and in New York, but this can also be used across the country. So if you have any comments or questions, please, you can always email me at dbond011@gmail.com. That's dbond011@gmail.com. Or you can contact me via Facebook as well. All right. So you go out with your real estate agent. Your agent is the buyer's agent. You find a perfect house. Now what? People always want to know, now what? You already signed your buyer's rep, which we talked about in our last video. So now that you find a perfect house, you're going to put an offer in. Now what? Usually buyers have so many questions and they're not sure where to go. That's why you have a licensed real estate agent working on your behalf. All right, so first thing you're going to do is, now this is kind of a little bit dicey because it varies from place to place, and it can even vary from municipality to municipality. But typically you'll sign you'll fill out a standard 3-page contract with your real estate agent. Now I caution this because even in the state of Connecticut and even New York, it varies from place to place. For example, in Bridgeport, where my office is, but I practice all throughout the state in Fairfield, New Haven counties. Typically, you'll sign a 3-page standard real estate contract, all right, or you fill one out rather. In Stamford and in Greenwich, you fill out what's called a purchase to offer, and once it's accepted, the attorneys draw up their own contract. The bottom line is the attorney's going to see it either way, but that's how they do things down there. And in Westchester County and in New York City, you send something in writing with a pre-approval letter, and then they'll accept it. And then once again, the attorneys will draw up a contract. That's fine as well. Whatever way works, it's great. But I'm going to just stick to what we do up here. It varies. Your agent can direct you better on how that's done. But basically, when you want to submit an offer in, the first question is, how much should we put an offer in for? Let's say a house costs $200,000, right? You're going to put down 1%, what we call EMD, Earth's Money Deposit. That's 1% to show that you're serious. You have an interest in buying that particular piece of property. Now, how much is why is it 1%? It's not. There's no magical number or formula. You can put anything down you want. In Connecticut, believe it or not, legally, you can actually put down $1 for a deposit. But they're going to laugh at you if you do that. So tradition has been 1% of whatever the purchase price is. So in other words, if you see a $200,000 house, that 1% will be $2,000. Make it simple. I hope it's $2,000. Yeah, it's $2,000. And then that will hold. That shows that you're interested. Now, that's at 1%. Now, if you're getting an FHA loan, which we talked about before, remember FHA loans are 3.5%, then what you'll do is you put down 1%, and then upon acceptance of the offer and after inspection and everything, you'll put down the other 2.5%. If it's conventional, either 10% or 20%, then that 1%, and then you'll put down the other 9% in a few weeks, or the other 19% in a few weeks, depending if you're doing conventional loans, 10% or 20% down. So that's the first thing you do. So you cut that check. Now, your agent, at least this is what I do, typically will not send that. They're going to take a picture of that check, or they're going to, or they still use fax it or scan it, whatever may be done. But the bottom line is the other agent will see, okay, this person wrote it out to the other agent's firm. Usually if it's another person's listing. So let's say, for example, you have John Doe Real Estate is the listing agent. They're the ones that's selling the house, and you're with ABC Real Estate. Typically, you'll fill a check out for, John Doe Real Estate in the amount of $2,000, and you put as a memo, 1% deposit on the property, whatever the address is, 123 Main Street. That's typically what you'll do. So you fill out the form. Now, the form is going to typically say, all right, what is the what is the offer price, if you will. So let's say the house is $200,000. You can either put a full price offer in if you want, or you could put a, you go under that. You could do $190. All right, and then it's going to say the mortgage calculation, and let's see here, and then some other nuances, mathematical nuances. Then after that, typically there'll be a form for inspections. I'm going to go in another video about what inspections are, but basically the inspection is to see. It's like a report card on the property to see what is wrong with the property, if anything's wrong with the property, what needs to be rectified, what is serious, what's not serious. So you have to decide if you want to get an inspection done with the property, and this includes termites as well. I strongly recommend you get an inspection done for the property. I think it's very, very, very important. Even those people in the business, such as contractors and like construction people who know about homes, they get inspections as well. So inspections is important. We're going to discuss that in a later video. So you have your inspections, and the inspection traditionally takes place 2 weeks or so after the acceptance of the offer, when the offer is made, all right? And then it's have a closing date. Now, the closing date will usually say on or before that date. Typically, what I like to do is I like to put 2 months in advance, all right? So today is March 3rd. All right. Typically, April, May. Typically, I'll put it for May 3rd as the closing date. The closing happens sooner. If the closing happens sooner, that's fine. All parties are notified if the closing happens sooner. If the closing happens later, then we get what's called an extension, and usually that's not a problem. I'll speak about that in another video as well. I'm just going to go slow so that way I'm not throwing anybody off. And by the way, if you have any questions, always email me dbond011@gmail.com. So with that said, that's your closing date. Now, with the closing date, the closing date is imperative because, is everything's time, because you have the sellers who are trying to move somewhere else probably, and then you have the buyers. If you are currently in a home now or renting a place, whatever it is, you got to coordinate things. So, so the closing date is flexible. Everything's flexible. And then there's me another section in terms of any closing costs, or typically what we call seller's concession. Seller's concession basically is when a seller agrees to pay for your closing costs, because yes, you'll have to pay closing costs. Now, what are your closing costs? As a buyer, your closing costs could be anything from your mortgage fees, they call that origination fees, attorney fees that's to be paid by the buyer. If the sellers are going to be credited with things, because let's say they pay the property taxes, when you close, they pay the property taxes for the time that you're going to be in a house. Well, that money is given back to the sellers because they're not there. Why should they pay you to live there? So that's what sellers' concessions are. So, that's what closing fees are. So basically, the seller will sometimes agree to cover your closing costs. Sometimes it could be a percentage, or sometimes a whole dollar amount. So let's say your closing costs are typically $10,000. Sometimes the sellers will say, well, we'll cover half of that. That's if you ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes they'll say no. They'll scoff at the idea about, why should I pay your closing costs? But that's something you discuss with your real estate agent. And, it's a good way because it'll free up that cash for the buyer. And sometimes if the seller is getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for their place, mathematically speaking, $10,000 ain't going to make much of a difference. It's not going to break them. It's not going to break the bank. So that's why they'll go along with it. Also, they'll go along with it because they want the deal to go through. They got a good buyer, everything's solid, and what have you. The deal's going through. It's not worth, if you're selling a $500,000 house, to squabble over $10,000 in closing costs. It'll probably be more with a $500,000 house. But you get what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen. So that's another reason why that will be the case there. So far, we have the amount you're going to put an offer on. We have the inspections. Okay. Oh, another important thing is mortgage commitment. Mortgage commitment letter, basically, because the mortgage company, the mortgage lender is going to have all your information. And during that process, they're going to ask you for more things. They're going to ask you for, where does money come from? And like I told you before, don't buy anything. Don't charge, tickets to Vegas. Don't charge to go see, a Knicks game or wherever part of the country you're from. Don't do that. Don't do anything outrageous. Hold on to the funds. But they're going to check everything out. So once they establish that you, in fact, are not a problem, you're definitely going to get the mortgage. They'll issue a commitment letter to all parties interested. And this commitment letter is basically saying, yes, John over here is going to get the mortgage. There may be a few more conditions met. In that case, I'll call it a conditional commitment letter. But yeah, he's met all the conditions and what have you. He's good for the mortgage. It should go through within the foreseeable future in the next couple of days or maybe in some cases a couple weeks. But yes, he's good to go. That's what the mortgage commitment letter is. That's what everybody wants to see, meaning like, yes, a deal is going through. So that is vitally important. Usually I put the commitment letter 5 weeks in ahead. I mean, I could put it for shorter, but the thing is, I don't like to ask for extensions. Usually the attorney asks for that, or the agent asks for that as well. It's not a problem. Usually get it, but I hate to do it because after a while, they may scratch their heads. So I like to put it well in advance, like maybe 5 weeks. Some cases I put it 6 weeks. Usually I put it right like a week before we plan to close, just to cover my rear end. I like to do that. And once again, there's no big thing. It has to be extended, but I just like to do that to cover myself. So pretty much that's what it entails. What you're going to put down, how much money you're going to offer for the place, inspection dates, mortgage commitments. I'm going to speak about mortgage commitments in another video because it's important, and the closing date along with the closing costs. So those are items that are going to be on your form. So basically what happens is once that's done, the agent will send it in, all right? They'll wait to response, and one or two things can happen. They either can say no and move on, or they could say yes. All right, and then great, they accept your offer. And actually, there's three things. The third thing is they get issued what we call a counter offer. So let's say you put an offer in for $190, the place is $200,000. They come back and say, okay, we want $195 as a counter offer. You can either say yes, okay, we'll accept your counter offer $195 and move on, or you say no, $198 or something like that. So you could do that. You could just increments, but basically that's what it is. So three ways: no, yes, or counter. All right, those are pretty much the three approaches. And then once you do that, the contracts, the legal contracts between the two parties, after everybody signed off for them, will go to the attorneys. One thing you should keep in mind when you're doing this is know who you want to have as a home inspector and know who you want to have as an attorney. Those are the two most important things because you'll need both of those. Now, how does one determine the price of what they want to offer? What's a fair price? Well, your agent will be able to do this. Your agent will do what's called a CMA, comparative market analysis. So if the property sells for $200,000, they're going to match properties in the area that are similar to that. So if it's a colonial, they'll get a colonial 3-bedroom. If it's 1,500 square feet, they'll do that. They'll get them a bath, and they'll look within a general area what's sold in the past 6 months to a year, generally speaking, and usually is within a mile radius from the property that you're purchasing. And they'll do all that, and they'll say, okay, this $200,000 makes sense, all right? It's on point what other prices have been going for, with give or take $10,000. If it's too low, they'll say, hey, this is a great deal, all right? This property is actually, properties are going for $250, and this is a great deal, Or they could say, yes, this property is overpriced. House prices over here are going for $150, $160. This house is overpriced. So there's a couple of things that could go on. So like I said, I'm going to go over this in some other video clips with you. I know it's a lot to take in, but for now, this is just to help you obtain your goal of obtaining a home. So if you have any questions, email me, dbond011@gmail.com, or send a comment on Facebook. And once again, this is Damon Bond of Bond Realty Group, wishing you a happy and peaceful day. Good afternoon.